Hyundai i30N performance. A few years ago at some motor show, Hyundai boasted about its WRC presence, but nobody really believed that there's going to be a 275 horsepower hot hatch with a Korean badge on the grille.
And yet, Kia made a 370 horsepower sports sedan, and Hyundai has this 275 horsepower game console.
Comparison to a game console is actually positive here, because I don't recall another hot hatch with so advanced dynamic mode configuration options. There are something like 7 different sub-menus with 2, 3 or 4 choices everywhere, so you can adjust your engine response, you can adjust your rev matching, limited slip diff, exhaust, and then there is suspension, steering and traction control, and all of these have their separate settings. Now, from my perspective, everything can be put in N mode except for suspension, which is too stiff for most roads. I guess there are going to be some hardcore drivers who are going to switch rev matching off as well, because they can hill and tow. I can't, and i30N just does it so well. I know it's a bit chav of me, isn't it? It just sounds so good. And it's particularly annoying in the city. Anyway, you can turn it off. There is a dedicated button to turn rev matching off, so it's there on the steering wheel.
Speaking of buttons on the steering wheel, there are 2 large light blue buttons. They are always blue regardless of body color, which in case of this test example matches the buttons. Left button is to switch between normal, sport and eco mode. I don't know why bother with the sport mode, since we have the N mode button on the right. As far as I'm concerned, this car should be driven in eco mode or N mode. And that's it.
Even in eco mode, i30N is fast and fun to drive, but press the N button and it's a different level. Everything is turned up to 11. Sure, it's all electronics, but very well programmed.
I'm sure this car would cope great on a track, but I guess most people will drive it on public roads, and this is where all the fun is supposed to happen while keeping everything relatively safe. Hyundai i30N is all about that. It puts a smile on your face and makes your neighbor hate you for waking them up in the morning when you start the car. Speaking of cold start, there are additional orange lights on the rev counter which tell you not to go overboard with revving the engine while it's cold. They gradually disappear as the engine warms up, and then there are lights in the middle to tell you when to shift.
Okay, so that's the general picture, and now let's talk details. Suspension. It starts bone hard and goes to stone hard. The whole body is stiff with an additional strut brace in the boot. Hyundai i30N is all about driving, and let's face it, you're not buying one to drive your family around on the weekends. Sound. In my opinion, it's a bit overboard, but I love it anyway. Gearbox. It's precise, it has a short throw. I like automatic rev matching. I know, very chav of me. But I can't do it properly, and it enhances the whole experience. But you can turn it off. But why? Okay, so driving position. It's comfortable, but too high for my liking. And performance models gets electrically operated seats. They are heated, they have memory function and all that. Heating, I don't mind, but I would like the seats to be slightly lower. And Ford Focus RS gets better lateral support, although seats are also too high there. Steering. Steering is very direct. The steering ratio is 12.31 to 1. for all you geeks out there, that's Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio territory. It's a faster rug than in a BMW M3. Just watch out, because these 19-inch rims are curb magnets. Brakes. Brakes are surprisingly good after almost 10,000 kilometers in media tests. This car goes from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in about 6 seconds, so it needs effective brakes. Performance model gets 345mm discs in the front, 314mm discs in the back. Grip. Houston, we have a problem. N Performance wears Pirelli P0s and ordinary N gets Michelin Pilot Super Sports. I've seen enthusiastic reviews praising this car's handling and configurable LSD. However, in my case, i30N understeered a couple of times quite dangerously. I know it's winter and all, but I think it's the previous testers to blame because the front tire treads are a bit thin. I also don't suppose it has anything to do with extra weight. i30N weighs about 100 kilograms more than a Golf GTI or a Civic Type R.
Not only are the tires worn, but they're also cheaper winter Continentals. No wonder it's running wide. Economy. Let's face it, it's not your priority. Hyundai says something about 7 liters per 100 kilometers combined, but I wouldn't expect anything below 10. With a 50-liter tank, expect frequent visits at the pump. i30N Cockpit is not much different from an ordinary i30. There are a couple of N badges, a different gear knob, sport steering wheel and sport seats. Back seats are pretty ordinary as well. There's a strut brace in the boot which takes up some space. With it you get 381 liters instead of 395. Strut brace is standard for N and N Performance trim. I know in some markets these are the only two trim versions, but here in Poland we also get an N base which doesn't get the strut brace. From the outside, there are some red accents in the front and in the rear. From the side, you notice red brake calipers. And from the back, there is double exhaust and triangle brake light. Hyundai i30N prices start at €30,000 for a 250 horsepower N model. This 275 N Performance version costs about 35 grand. A comparably spec'd Golf GTI would cost around 40,000.
i30N is new territory for Hyundai. I didn't know what to expect, but I really liked this experience. i30N slots between Golf GTI and Civic Type R, not just in terms of power output, but also driving characteristics. Golf GTI, even in performance version, is toned down to be your everyday driver. Civic Type R, on the other hand, is very old school, raw, hardcore. i30N fills this niche, and it comes with a 5-year warranty. If you're in the market for a hot hatch, definitely take it for a test drive.
And what do you expect from a hot hatch? Should it be hardcore or a louder exhaust is enough to keep you happy? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, share it, rate it, and of course, subscribe if you haven't. New reviews every Friday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. And to make sure that we'll see each other in the next one, hit that bell icon to get notifications every time I post something.